Record. 3, 2, 1, and there we go. We're live here, back with Mr. Khalid. Mr. Khalid, how are you? I hope you're doing great. Let me hear you. I would love to ask you to raise your voice so everybody can hear you in our group on Facebook. We
Sure.
have
Can you hear me now?
the lovely Professor Khalid. Do you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you very well. Can you hear me?
I can hear you quite well. Would you please give us a little bit of intro about who you are, where you work, and your experience with English language?
Sure. So first of all, my name is Khalid Ibrahim. I'm an Iraqi Kurd. So I'm from the north of Iraq. I spent most of my life in Iraq and most of my education in Mosul. So I graduated from College of Arts.
تحياتنا الكوليدج اوف ارتس، تحياتنا استاذ عدنان واستاذ زياد.
Right. These are my friends too. And so I worked in Iraq after I graduated in 2006 until 2009 when I immigrated to the United States. And my goal was to pursue my higher education. So I did my master's in applied linguistics and TESOL at Winston-Salem State University in North Carolina, 2012. And I started teaching English as a second language to international students in the language school there. Then in 2015, I started my doctorate degree at Anaheim University, based in California. It's an online program, by the way. And it's in applied linguistics and TESOL as well. And at the same year, a year later, I started my own language school. It's called Own Language. It's based in the state of Georgia at Brenau University. I direct and manage that school along with some other American teachers. So we take international students, come to the US, and we teach them English as second language for about a year until they're ready to transition to the university and start their majors, whatever that major might be. So that's a very quick summary of
احنا حتى نكون unbiased بالنسبة للمتابعين، عندنا متابعين من different levels، فلازم نعطي مقدمة هماتين باللغة العربية. إذا تسمعني. تمام. هسه أعطيني شوية مقدمة باللغة العربية عن تجربتك، خبرتك بصورة عامة ودراستك، حتى يكون الجماعة المتابعين لنا عندهم فكرة بالعربي وبالإنجليزي، وبعدين حنبدي بالدسكشن.
تمام. اسمي خالد محمد إبراهيم. أنا كردي عراقي من شمال العراق، وتربيت في محافظة نينوى، وتلقيت دراستي هناك وخلصت الكلية في جامعة الموصل، كلية الآداب قسم الترجمة. تخرجت عام 2006.
لحظة. جماعة نينوى المتابعين إن إذا ما تعزموني على كبة موصلية ترى أزعل عليكم، كلكم أعطيكم بان من الصفحة. تسمعوني ولا لا؟ أرجع أستاذ خالد.
نعم. فطبعا يمكن من متابعيك أيضا أصدقاء كانوا معايا في مثلا ذكرت زياد وعدنان، كانوا
حكم
تخرجوا السنة بعدي تخرجوا.
حكم أيضا. صح. حكم أيضا.
نعم. وعملت في العراق طبعا في مجال الترجمة إلى سنة 2009، وسافرت لأمريكا هجرة بغية إكمال دراستي. كملت ماجستير في تدريس اللغة الإنجليزية في جامعة وينستون سالم في نورث كارولاينا عام 2012. عملت كمدرس اللغة الإنجليزية في معهد تدريس اللغة في نورث كارولاينا، وبدأت بدراسة الدكتوراه عام 2014 في علم تدريس اللغة الإنجليزية في جامعة أناهايم في كاليفورنيا. وأيضا أسست معهدي لتدريس اللغة الإنجليزية اللي هو Own Language، موجود على الإنترنت، وتخصص في تدريس الطلبة الأجانب اللي يسافرون لأمريكا ندرسهم لغة إنجليزية قبل ما يبدون بدراستهم في التخصص الجامعي. وأنا أدير المعهد عن بعد طبعا، لأن أنا الآن في دهوك في العراق. وهي ملك لي ومن تخصصي مع مجموعة أساتذة أمريكيين هناك أيضا أتواصل معهم.
تمام. بيرفكت. عندما نتحدث عن التعليم اللغوي للغة الإنجليزية بالعراق وفرق عن التعليم باللغة الإنجليزية عن كاليفورنيا تحديداً والمراكز التعليمية اللي أنت تدربت فيها، احكي لنا عن تجربتك عن الفرق بثلاث three elements or three differences in order to get a better perspective on the differences between the Iraqi teaching of English and learning of English, of course, because they are intertwined together, and your teaching and learning of English in the United States as a non-native speaker is teaching English to non-native speakers.
Right. So one of the main reasons why I specialized in English and then went to the US is because I was frustrated with the quality of language teaching in Iraq. In fact, in middle school, I used to fail on the subject of English. It was a nightmare for me. So at the end of high school, I decided to major English to turn the difficulty into a challenge. And the teaching was, old grammar, translation-based methodology, very teacher-centered, very boring grammar vocabulary exercises, as opposed to more communicative-based language teaching that is more common in the US. There's a focus on using the language as opposed to learning about the language here in Iraq. There's a lot of focus on communicating through the language, and there's a lot of learner-centered approaches and methods that are used, in my experience, in the US, where it's a task-based approach to language teaching.
خلينا نتوقف هنا عند هذه النقطة. طبعاً أنا دا أعمل أكثر من دور، دا أتحدث وياك ودا أقرأ التعليقات ومركز ويا الكلام اللي أنت تتحدث فيه حضرتك. عندنا ثلاث تعليقات أساسية. التعليق الأول من هوس خلف، تقول أتمنى تنزل رابط صفحتك، فأتمنى ترسل لي الرابط أو أنا راح ألقيه لأنه موجود وأرسله حتى تستمتعون بالدروس اللي موجودة هناك. ولو أني أحب أشجع أستاذ خالد أنه يكثر من الدروس التعليمية، ويا ريت ينطينا فد درس مصور من داخل الكلاس حتى الناس تأخذ فكرة عن الميثودز، لأنه هذا يعتبر more theoretical، يعني هو you're putting all the experience in perspective of teaching. فإذا يا حبذا تنطينا فد فكرة عن هذا. سيا علي تقول أو يقول أنا طبيبة وما أعرف أحكي إنجليزي، شنو تعليقك إلها؟ والتعليق الثاني، خلينا نجاوب على هذا التعليق أولاً. من وجهة نظرك تدريسي للغة الإنجليزية للأجانب بالولايات المتحدة، شنو تعليقك لهذا الموضوع تحديداً؟
نعم تمام. راح ننزل إن شاء الله الرابط، وبدينا الآن بتصوير بعض الدروس القصيرة عن تدريس اللغة الإنجليزية، وبدأت في سلسلة أوضح مبادئ أساسية في تدريس اللغة الإنجليزية. والأخت الطبيبة اللي سألت يعني للأسف ماكو طريقة سهلة تعلم اللغة الإنجليزية. أكو مبادئ ممكن واحد يعتمد عليها. أحد هاي المبادئ إنه واحد يكون موجود في مدرسة أو في معهد وفي أساتذة كفؤين وفي منهج كفؤ، وخاصة إذا كان أساتذة يتكلمون باللغة الإنجليزية. لا يوجد إشكال إذا كانوا أساتذة عراقيين ويتكلمون كفؤين مثل الاستاذ وليد وأساتذة كثيرين يعني، أو أساتذة أجانب. استخدام اللغة بكثافة، يعني بشكل 3 أو 4 ساعات باليوم احنا ندرس في المعهد في أمريكا. يعني الطالب اللي يجي مستوى مبتدئ إلى ما ينتهي أدفانس حوالي 1000 ساعة، يعني 4 أو 5 ساعات باليوم، 5 أيام بالأسبوع لمدة سنة. فهي ما مسألة ساعة أو ساعتين بالأسبوع، وإنما تأخذ وقت وجهد كثير. استخدام اللغة بشكل مكثف، يعني ربما هذا إجابة سريعة. سعد.
عندنا سؤال آخر. البعض يقول أنه أكو إمكانية تتحدث اللغة الإنجليزية وتجيدها ب3 أشهر. هل هذا الشيء صح؟ لو أنه اللغة تتطلب وقت retention recovery training failure وبعض المسائل الأخرى؟ أنا جاوبت على السؤال اللي ما جيك بس أريد وجهة نظر كده.
تمام. طبعا عندنا الآن بعض الدراسات تقول أنه الإنسان يصل إلى مستوى كفؤ جدا باللغة، يعني يتحدث في يعني عنده كفاءة اجتماعية social proficiency يقولون له تتطلب حوالي 7 إلى 8 سنوات.
تمام.
3 أو 4 سنوات تكون في بلد اللي يتحدث اللغة. يعني 7 أو 8 سنوات بحيث الإنسان يقدر يتكلم بمستوى قريب يسمونه near native، قريب مستوى المتحدث باللغة الأصلية. أما هاي 3 أشهر أو 6 أشهر ممكن واحد يتعلم أمور بسيطة بالمحادثة، يمشي نفسه يعني في يصل مستويات معينة. وما مستوى كفؤ ما ممكن. حتى الطلبة اللي يدرسون سنة كاملة في أمريكا يصلون إلى مستوى بحيث يمشون أمورهم في دراسة التخصص. يصلون إلى مستوى أدفانس، لكن هذا المستوى أدفانس حقيقة ما يشبه مستوى المتحدث الأصلي باللغة، وإنما مستوى أدفانس بحيث يقدر يدير أموره نفسه في الجامعة. ف3 أشهر يعتمد على المستوى. أيضا لما نسوي تقييم لشخص مستواه إذا كان انترميديت أو هاي انترميديت يجوز 3 أشهر أو 4 أشهر توصل إلى مستوى أدفانس. إذا كان مبتدئ ما ممكن.
بحكم خبرتك تدريس اللغة الإنجليزية بالولايات المتحدة الأمريكية حالياً، بغض النظر عن الظرف اللي هسه احنا نمر به اللي هو كورونا أو كوفيد-19، هل تعتقد أنه هناك فرق كبير بين أنه الشخص يتعلم اللغة الإنجليزية بالعراق ويجيدها وبين الشخص يتعلم اللغة الإنجليزية بالولايات المتحدة؟ لأنه البعض يقول، وطبعا احنا بسبب الظروف طبعا ما حد يقدر يسافر، الكل يقدر يسافر، يعني اكو جماعة تقدر واكو جماعة ما تقدر. هل أنه الشخص اللي موجود بالعراق نهائياً ما يقدر يوصل للمستوى اللي يوصل الشخص اللي يأخذ لغة إنجليزية وهو موجود بمعهد بالولايات المتحدة؟
في حالات استثنائية طبعاً، وأيضاً أكو بعض الدراسات على هذا الموضوع بالذات. في حالات إنه بعض الأشخاص اللي هم عندهم حافز وعندهم ما يسمى بلانجوج ابتيتيود، قدرة فطرية على تعلم اللغة، ويبذلون جهد سنوات بالقراءة والممارسة، وعندهم أصدقاء أجانب ويتابعون الأفلام والمسلسلات، ممكن يصلون
reading
إلى
and practice. Reading and practice, right?
نعم
for optimizing your language aptitude. Perfect.
تمام. يصلون الى حالات مستويات متقدمه يعني، لكن تبقى بعض الامور الثقافيه اللي ممكن واحد صعب يتعلمها اذا ما خالط الناس او خالط الثقافه.
Acculturation.
نعم some cultural references.
Okay, perfect. Based on your experience, what word categories are difficult for learners of English in Iraq usually? And how do you approach this kind of dilemma in the classroom where you have more than 2 people to teach?
So you're talking about the vocabulary, right?
I'm talking about which grammar category, nouns, verb, adjectives, and adverbs, is challenging to the Iraqi speaker, and how do you approach that to students in Iraq, for example? How do you go about teaching that in addition to teaching the cultural element?
Right. So speaking of grammar, I think you mentioned, by the way, in my school we do not teach grammar explicitly. So that's also one of the old methods of language teaching, is focusing explicitly on teaching the grammar. It's ineffective. Some teaching of grammar is all right, especially if you're using a discovery method, where you focus on an item and you ask the students to search for an answers for it. We think that grammar can be learned and internalized through experience and use of the language.
So it's a kind of implicit inductive approach to teach grammar.
Right. So we focus on language use. So we give students tasks, for example, how to order coffee. So now we give them some language input, teaching them some of the expressions they could use. And then if they make some grammatical mistakes along the way of performing that task of ordering a cup of coffee, we teach them a little bit of grammar to help them to facilitate an effective message. Okay, you're back.
I'm back. I'm sorry. It's my fault. I lost the connection. You know, it's typical of Iraqi internet connectivity here.
Right, it happens. It's all right.
It's in rich families. We will continue discussion offline, but I will post the rest of the video to my page. So we've talked for say 15 minutes. Let me just hook up to a better voice quality here. Is this better?
Yes, I can hear you very well.
Okay. هسه احنا بدنا نتحدث عن طريقة. Of course, I'm not asking you to spill the beans of this magic spell to learn English, but I would definitely ask you to enlighten us and give us an insight of the American way of teaching English to non-native speakers, and how can the Iraqi students who live in Iraq can take advantage of this method?
Right. So there is no one American method of language teaching, of course. You know, I've been to many language schools across the US and been to conferences. I've trained close to 1,000 American teachers on teaching methodologies in the US actually and abroad. So there is no one American method, but there are different methods that are used. And perhaps what is becoming most common now is the task-based language teaching.
Perfect.
And task-based language teaching has some features. You know, if we recount their features, maybe it will become clear for a language learner.
Can students take advantage of that autonomously when learning English, or they should just receive the instructions from the coach and then proceed with the training?
Right. So one of the key features of task-based teaching is that it necessitates social interaction. So it requires an interaction. So that means a language learner needs to be in contact with some other language learners to use the language in a social interaction. So interaction is a key aspect of task-based teaching, and some teacher instruction can facilitate and help language acquisition that takes place through social interaction. So I would say for Iraqis that they find maybe a group of language learners, they can come together and make a decision to use English only in their interactions together in the classroom and outside the classroom, so that they can practice the language and use it on a daily basis. So that's the key element. The second thing is, if they want to find a teacher and study in school, they make sure that that teacher speaks English only, or most of the time, in the classroom, so that they increase the social interaction. And the third thing that they can focus on, find the appropriate school, is to make sure that that school provides a lot of language use in terms of reading, writing, listening, and speaking, what we call input. There's plenty of input. Maybe there's library, there are books, maybe video clips are played in every class, and maybe there is a writing task every day, emails and messages. So they're using the language on a daily basis, as opposed to just listening to a teacher explaining grammar and other aspects of language. So they're using the language to interact with one another, and they're using the language in the classroom for a meaningful purposes, to write letters and messages, to give presentations, speeches, and other aspects of language use.
Sometimes it comes to the question of intrinsic motivation. Some of the learners become intrinsically demotivated after a week or two of trying out multiple methods and not finding the best optimal one for them to learn English language. What is your recommendation to students and learners of English who just feel demotivated after a couple of weeks of language practice, and probably with a hint of frustration?
Right. So, you know, one of the approaches we are using in my school is called text-driven approach. So where we come up with 10 or 12 principles taken from the second language acquisition principles, and we use these principles as a criteria for selecting materials and developing lessons. And a key principle in that set of criteria is called emotional engagement. And a second one is cognitive engagement. So we try to find texts, whether spoken or written, that would appeal to the students, that would engage them emotionally. Maybe they are related to their hobbies and interests, maybe my group of students are interested in discussing politics. So I would select texts that discuss politics so as to engage them. So finding what the students' interests are as a teacher, and then selecting materials and developing lessons and tasks that would appeal to them so that they become emotionally and cognitively engaging. So that's one way you could maybe address that motivation thing. And so, students also can bring their materials so that they are interested in.
Sorry to cut you in. That's from the perspective of the teachers, that on the teachers' side. Let's talk about the learners. If they are autonomously trying to take care of their learning trajectory, sometimes they know what they want, but they don't know what they need. Since it takes a little bit of observation from someone in superior knowledge of English language teaching and how he presents the materials that suits and is tailored to the students' level and their needs and what they want to do with their language. So from the students' perspective, how can the students take advantage of the skills that they have meagerly to improve them on a progressive trajectory? Because sometimes they lose the steam after 2 or 3 attempts. There's plethora of applications online. There's so many websites. There are so many books, commercials, commercial books. There's so many education facilities that offer discount for training. And once you are in this labyrinth of language sources, it is going to be really hard on you to make a decision on the best one. Because if you know the best one, that defeats the purpose of learning language, because you have the awareness of choosing the best one. As if you're going into a pharmacy and trying to select the best medicine to you, and then you find like 120 types of the same medicine with different prescriptions.
Right. So, there's a scholar, he's European, I don't remember which country specifically, Zoltan Dornay. He spent most of his professional life in student motivation and language learners. And he's done a lot of research. And one of his books is Motivation Second Language Learning. So one of the things he proposes is that for students is to come up with specific goals for their language learning. So like you said, the plethora of information can be overwhelming, not just for students, but for everyone. So starting with first finding where you are, assessing your language proficiency, and then identifying some short and long-term goals as where you want to be. So point of starting and the target, let's say after 2 months, after the end of the year. And then once you specify your language learning goals, then you find the means that would help you move from the starting point to the end goal. So that maybe help. Sometimes working with a group of motivated students to encourage one another helps.
I think, well, just to answer your question, Zoltan Dornay is a British professor, Nottingham University, and I did not have this information on the top of my head. I just Googled them. The fact that we're dealing with EFL context, it's really hard to ESL students to find organic context to practice or to put their skills in practice. There's this lack of contact with native speakers or non-native speakers, and that necessitates an alternative strategy and protocol to deal with how you immerse yourself in language. One of the priorities of language communication is to be able to be understood by others. And in that way, language is going to be a mean of communication. And if it is a mean of communication, and there is no communication in English that is necessary to use English, that defeats the purpose of using English. So there's lack of use or lack of context. There's also the fact of limited sources for EFL learners. What do you recommend for this kind of issues?
Yes, that is a challenge. I mean, I don't dispute that. I agree with you. I mean, I'm an example of that. I studied English here in college, and I had very limited access to using language in authentic settings until after 2003, you know. So it's not easy. But I would say that, you know, movies, watching TV, making maybe friends through social media, Facebook and Instagram and other places. Used to be a platform called Pen Pal, I think. But I think nowadays you can make connections with people in the West through social media as well. And also finding language learners who are Iraqis in your proximity, who have studied the language and who you can maybe make sort of agreement with them to use the language, you know. I used to do some of that with two of my classmates in the University of Mosul. We would select certain day of the week and we would use the English only to practice. Wasn't very comfortable because you're not used to speaking with your friends in English. But, you know, we pushed ourselves just to try a little bit. I used to only ask my professors questions in English when I was studying at the University of Mosul. And that at the beginning was not easy, but, you know, I pushed myself. So these are some maybe ways they can try. Could maybe help to a certain extent.
What is your comment to people who mock those who try to practice English and make fun of them because they use English in their speech? First of all, probably you've had this kind of situation in your life. You've been linguistically bullied because you're speaking English. That's a good expression, linguistic bullying. Can we do our research about it?
Yeah, that's fascinating. I never thought about that. Yeah.
So
coined a new word.
Yeah. So how do you recommend they go about, you know, dealing with this kind of situation? It's critical to some of them. It just affects their self-esteem and their perception of themselves because of that kind of criticism, negatively, most of it.
Yeah, right. Well, if they're their friends, obviously they are connected with them. Maybe try to explain to them why they are doing that. If they're not important friends, I would just say never mind them. People who criticize you or, like you said, bully you, then I shouldn't have them in my life. You know, they're not good people to be even around. So that would be my advice.
Perfect. Do you have any final things to say or recommend, any piece of advice you would give to Iraqi?
I would just say, you know, anyone can learn the language. You know, I used to fail on English all the time. Now people in the US think that I speak English natively, and that surprises me. So I would say if I can do it, then everyone can do it. It just takes a long time. You know, it requires some patience, a lot of dedication and consistency on a daily basis. Just never give up. Just take a few years journey and you will get there.
Okay, perfect. Mr. Khalid, thank you so much for your hospitality and also for your willingness to take part and chip in some advice to the Iraqi community who's been under lockdown due to COVID-19. And during this time, they need to take advantage of this beautifully put kind of period to learn language. I would like to thank you so much, and I hope this is not going to be the last meeting we put together to push the wheel of English learning process forward. So we hope that we've just added a new step and also a bit of motivation to learners to carry on with their language process and language learning. Thank you so much. Let's have another meeting soon. Inshallah.
Sure. And I wanted to add, Waleed, to mention also, we're starting language assessment free. We're selecting a sample of interested people to give them an assessment because we're preparing to offer some online courses for Iraqis and people elsewhere. So if people are interested, we could put the link there.
Okay, perfect. Send me the link, and if you like to do a demo lesson for half an hour to the prospective candidates, I would definitely put an announcement on that in my page, and I'll definitely spread the word about it. Again, any kind of linguistic initiative that you have, please shoot it back to me. I'm always one email away and one message away. Send it to me, and I will definitely spread out the word about it, and then start from there. So as the FBI agents say, we'll take it from there. Thank you so much, and have a wonderful
Thank you for
day.
all that you're doing for language learning.
Thank you so much, and ربي معك، ربي يحفظك.
أهلا وسهلا.
مع السلامة حبيبي.